Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley. Every week, we bring you the stories of people who are making the world a better place, locally, globally, and digitally. We are part of Rotary International, 1.3 million Rotarians and Rotaractors around the world and over 36,000 clubs, where the idea is to follow the motto that we have, service above self. And if you are into stories of people who do wildly cool things in the innovative service space, then you will want to watch more of our recordings because we get to talk to such cool and interesting people. Among those cool and interesting people is Erin Smith, the CEO and owner of Ocean Soul. Now, this is an organization doing all kinds of things to transform debris, what was otherwise debris, into art and possibility, and we are really excited to have her with us today. Erin, I hand the mic over to you. Welcome to the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley.
Oh, thank you. I'm proud to be here and I'm grateful to tell the opportunity of this story. So let's jump into who is Ocean Soul and what are we all about? So this is my team. We're a Kenyan-based social enterprise with a nonprofit here in the United States. Our entire mission is around community, conservation, and commitment. Everything we do, everything we measure, my background is in private equity, so I'm a very data geek. We measure our impact and look at what are the differences we're making into people's lives or into ocean conservation. So let me go through and tell you about these fascinating pictures that you see here in all this color and how we get there. So first thing we do is we clean beaches. Most first world or Western world, I should say, don't see beaches like this. This is kind of beaches that you'll see along the Indian Ocean, Caribbean, India, Malaysia, and some of these kind of what I would say hotter, more below the equator beaches. This happens to be my beach up there on the left. And you'll see all the debris that we get. And you'll see a lot of flip-flops. And I'll explain how they come to our beaches. But our beaches get this dirty, in particular, usually during monsoon season. So about 6 months out of the year. So these are live shots of us cleaning beaches and what our beaches look like. And you can see that there is a problem. So from that, we have communities up and down the beaches and waterways of Kenya that clean all of the beaches, but Ocean Soul in particular takes the flip-flops. So you can see these flip-flops that are kind of below our elephant there. They're very salty, they're brittle. They've been a long time in sea or a long time in a river. And that's how they make their way to our beaches. We clean them up. And then on the right, you can see our artisans starting to work in our workshop to make some art from it. So that's our solution as of right now. So we employ artisans. We employ about 150 artisans that are in Kenya. We're, like I said, a Kenyan project. These artisans are mostly farmers by trade. And so they rotate through their employment, go up country and plant their maize for their families. And then we also support an ecosystem of about another 1,000 people in terms of who we either buy food from or our chef or our, truck drivers. But most of these artisans used to be woodworkers. They used to cut down trees to make curios. So we have transformed them and put them through apprentice programs to learn how to use the medium of the flip-flop. So we also educate on conservation. We get a lot out into the communities. We've been to KAUST University, which is an amazing university, King Abdullah University, Science and Tech in Saudi Arabia. We go out into our local community in Kenya. We do this in the United States. So we'll teach everything from whether it's wildlife conservation, sea life conservation, or how to recycle, or how to run even a social enterprise like ours and be successful in terms of turning trash into, kind of art form or into something that can be upcycled. We empower women. 50% of our impact is through women, whether they are the ocean mamas that are out there cleaning the beaches or making product, or in our apprentice programs where they've started out maybe as washers and working, kind of the die cuts into ultimately becoming a master artisan as well. So we hire people from prison that have come out of prison and teach them skills. And we constantly working in high impact communities as well along the coastal sea line of the Indian Ocean. So we advocate through art. We know that our art is not solving the flip-flop debris problem that I'll tell you about, but we do know we make statement pieces. We make beautiful art. It's colorful. It's handmade. And I think anyone that purchases it or supports this is, kind of showing their commitment towards conservation. And that's what we want, is people to talk about ocean conservation or even social impact issues that are, plaguing some of these countries like Kenya. So how we do it, like you said, we organize all these beach cleanups pretty much every day. That's a full-time job for some of these ladies. They organize themselves a little bit like Mary Kay or Avon, kind of a pyramid game, collect everything on the beaches. We buy them, bring them to our workshop. We wash them, hand wash. We do everything manually because that creates employment and more impact. And we disinfect them. And ultimately they go into the workshop where the artists pick the colors and do the combination. We use glue and eco-friendly glue to put them together. We press them together. And then ultimately the guys carve them with rudimentary knives that you've seen in some of the pictures. And then they sand them to give it a nice polished finish and use a lot of the sanding tools to actually drive some of the detail that you'll see in some of the artwork. We also, as we're making carvings, we have some shredded bits as well. So what we've done is somebody donated a shredder to us. We shred all of these pieces and then we make mattresses. Kenya has the largest refugee camp, Dadaab, that's in northern Kenya near Ethiopia and Somalia. And so we send refugees with the Red Cross up there. We make them for down here, these blue and green ones. We had a community, a slum that had a raging fire through it and people lost their homes. And so we whipped up about 250 mattresses or, futons for them to kind of get through, some days in the struggle. So that's what we do with our waste. Sometimes we mix it with concrete. Sometimes we give it to people for, use that they find for insulation between their homes. So ultimately we're trying to circular through our waste. So who do we make this art for that support us? Everything from corporations. We have zoos and aquariums that have done installations. We've had elephants at Disney. We've made dragons for schools, mascot programs. We've made a life-size Honda car. We're making a Porsche for a gentleman in Carmel. We've made it for embassies. So, people get creative with us. We come up with the designs. And as you can see here, obviously the gentlemen are very, very talented, that you can see here from, dodo birds to gorillas. So it's quite fun to watch and bring to life. We also partner with people. We have a lot of partnerships that we've worked mostly commercially. So the different types of partnerships we've done. Chloe is a very high-end, expensive brand, out of France. You can see our platform there. So we made about 200,000 shoes for them that they ultimately sold for a great deal of money. And we were part of their social impact program. We've worked with the Old Pejeta Conservancy. If you remember, probably in 2018, Sudan was the last white male rhino and he died. So we've been raising money for his insemination program that they've been doing with some other female rhinos around the world. And so we sell likes of Sudan and then give donations to the Old Pejeta. And then Oprah is, we make these other products and they've gotten recognition around the world. And we do that a lot with schools and universities or football teams. They'll pick up their colors and we support that. We've been told, our story's been told globally. So we're honored to come here. We've been on German TV. We have a really interesting half-hour show coming up. The gentleman that was from Game of Thrones, who's got this new Echo show, CNN. We've been, around the world. We have lots of people come and visit, which is very validating, but that helps us get our message out there. And we always find new clients and new partners. So we're proud of our impact. We recycle now probably about more than about 1.5 million flip-flops a year. I talked about our employment statistics, the people that we educate, and all the Kenyans that support. Again, very committed. All of our profits go back into our communities, whether it's helping with educational scholarships, whether it's helping them buy land for things that they need or transportation, or we donate it to our sea turtle conservation. So we run it. We are almost B certified. We're 1% for the planet and Nest. So I've just run it as a social enterprise from the beginning. So quickly, people always ask, why are there so many flip-flops? And you need to go back to what the real root cause is there's about 3 billion people and it's roughly about the same as the poverty line, where that is one of the only shoes that they can afford. These shoes are not, Chloe shoes at $700 or Havaianas. These are very cheaply made in mass production shoes that are their main shoe. Usually you're found to have a church shoe and maybe a flip-flop. So these shoes end up in circulation because, 3 billion people, there's 2 pairs, that's 6 billion flip-flops. And you're talking about, kind of in markets where obviously they get torn and they may even need to buy some more. So people will say to me, oh, are they just throwing them, are Kenyans and, Indians and Southeast Asia and people in Haiti and, that all these problems that we see, are they throwing these, flip-flops into the beach? Well, no, they're not. They're respectful people and they're trying to put their flip-flops and their, waste in a proper way, but there's no infrastructure. So if you look at this is just a gentleman in my local village in Kilifi, Kenya. This is the amount of shoes and he sells, 15 pairs a day. So you start to see when you, kind of peel back the onion, like the volume of shoes that is required for people to have safety on their feet. And, then you also start to look at how many of these flip-flops are made. Just a small little company, as you can see in the statistic there, that's 58 million flip-flops that are being made a year just in a small little workshop in Kenya. So you can imagine on a global scale, when you start talking about China and India and some of these other, countries that can do things on a mass production, the volume of this flip-flop business. So the problem doesn't end, it ends in the ocean, but it doesn't start there. Again, on the left, that's one of our gentlemen. He's cleaning the beaches. We're out cleaning a riverway. You can see these shoes, how heavily worn they've been and how they've been discarded. The waste management, is just leaking them from kind of the village infrastructure into the riverways. This is Mercy over here on the right. She's been a flip-flop collector for about 14 years now. She's put 5 kids through school and 2 through university. She runs a team of about 10 women that do this, and they go into this, hideous types of environments to clean up flip-flops and keep them from going into the ocean. So again, why are these flip-flops hitting? This is a picture of East Africa on the map. What we found in correlation, because I started to dig into some of this and say, what's going on here? The trash is coming along the same path that our turtles and other sea mammals are migrating. So as they're migrating in these tides, they're picking up the plastic and, whether it's water bottles or toothbrushes or flip-flops, and they're all kind of coming together. We just happen as a curve there where Kenya is, we get these tides coming in and they're hitting our beaches. And therefore that is one of the reasons we get them. So the harm is not only when it hits our beach, but the entire path through the tide, this plastic and this flip-flop debris accompany these turtles and others that are trying to get to their safety for continued breeding. So again, and also we have some major rivers in Kenya, and along rivers are villages and other, sometimes plants. Back in the day, before plastic was a huge problem, these dumps were made biodegradable. It's mostly food and textiles and sisal and things, corn husks. But, since plastic has really gone into these emerging markets, the volume of it has overshadowed these dumps, and the whole process itself can't handle it. So we end up with these urban dumps, like you can see these horrible pictures here, but that all starts and then it starts to leak into the rivers and head its way down into the ocean. But it wreaks havoc on the way. You will have, it blocks sewage, it blocks clean waterways. And so it's not just sea life, that's getting impacted. Humans are, as this trash is carried throughout these riverways. So that's how they, get here to our beaches. That is a typical flip-flop we see. That happens to be my beach, where you see it's very degraded. It's been through the salt, but as they're getting degraded, they're releasing these microplastics, and that's impacting fish and other sea life, as has become kind of a worldwide recognizable problem right now. So that's kind of how they make that. So we take all that trash and we make art like this. These are, again, some other, kind of installations and places that we've gone around the world to make some impact. That's a replica. Oh, thank you. A replica of Big Tim on the right. He was a major tusker, Kenyan tusker, that he's in the Atlantic Zoo yet. And this is the Botanical Gardens. So that's what we try to do with that trash. Like I said, advocate for the mission that we are on, which is, community and conservation. We have 2. Those are 2 videos that we talked about. There's 2, one from Business Insider and one from Flip Flop Artists, that you can come and see on YouTube or on your own Rotary channel. And that's it. That's what we do.
Awesome, Erin. Thank you so much. Well, what I'd like to do is introduce the group that we've got on the recording, and then we'll dive into the Q&A. So here in the Bay Area, Shags and Walnut Creek. I am in San Jose, and in Texas, we've got Rory, and back there purring is Gus. All right,
Yeah.
Gus, good to see you. And Erin, this is a fascinating effort that you've got going here in so many ways. I want to start by talking a little bit about just the color. There's so much color in the artwork. And so when I see, what's happening in the slides with the processes,
Yes.
clearly you're having to do a lot to get these cleaned up. Can you talk more about that?
Yes, and when we get them, you saw some of the pictures of, like you can even see on the slide where here, the level of the flip-flop. So when you get this vibrancy, it's from the sanding. So what the guys will do is they'll put flip-flops all over, this piece. He's got polyurethane inside of him, which is from the refrigeration. You'll find it in your refrigerator and containers. That's what's inside of here. And then they patch that. And then where you get the vibrancy is the sanding. And so, but the cleaning beforehand, that is really more around disinfecting and, kind of getting that dirt around. That's what happens there. But the sanding gets rid of a lot of that debris and brings back these colors.
Got it. Erin, can I have you stop sharing so that we can take a good look at the artwork as well?
Sure. Stop share.
All right. Good deal.
You want to see this moose?
Very nice. All right. I mean, I would assume that especially the large scale pieces are quite important for the funding for the business in terms of people who really see the beauty in the story and they want that to become part of the story that they tell in their spaces. Can you give us an idea of you mentioned a number of the different businesses that have them, but kind of a process in terms of folks finding out about you and then, maybe the business itself purchases it or maybe a supporter of a zoo or something like that. Tell us a little bit more along those lines.
Yeah. So different scenarios like McKee Botanical Gardens and nice botanical gardens here in Florida. They do every year, let's all admit it. We love botanical gardens, but they can be quite boring, kind of like, lots of flowers. And so they always do a fun installation. So they got in touch with us. And, the process is we start thinking together and collaborating. And we ended up coming with 20 pieces, some of which you saw, like the shark and stuff. And so they went out and they got funding from some of their trustees, of the botanical gardens, paid for them. So they bought all of that art. And then what they did, a lot of places will do, like an organization like that, they auctioned them off or people took them home or they donated them to school. So, a lot of times they, continue to have a second life. We have a lot of high net worth individuals. We had a gentleman that bought a gorilla in his very modern, beautiful glass house, and going up the stairs, he's got this massive gorilla. So you get a lot of people that, love the color and that, and they design something for themselves. The zoos, they can, sometimes a donor will buy them. The Honda was a guy in Alabama who was great. He's like, Erin, I need a selfie. And so we had this Honda and he's like, I sold 52 cars from that flip-flop car because, people would come in to take selfie. It's just an attraction. And so, and that was probably $30,000. I mean, our artwork's priced, for artwork and for impact. In fairness, people that are buying at that level are not super price conscious. I mean, they are, but they're not, it's kind of, they're not paying small dollars for that, I would say.
Well, if that purchaser's numbers are right, then that was a very good investment on his part. So what? Let's stay with the business for a minute. So you've got some good stats in your slides about the number of people employed. Is there anyone else on the team in the United States, or is it just you?
Oh, so why we're here is my parents. So my global marketing team is here. So we have two things here. We do fulfillment because after our viral video, there was a huge demand for products and we were having really difficult, to ship, say one of you wanted a piece of art, to ship it was expensive. The wholesalers, zoos, aquariums, boutiques, they wanted to hold, they wanted it locally. So we invested, I invested in my own capital and put some, and we brought a container over. So here we fulfill in the United States. So we basically have our United States wholesale business, our online business, and there's 4 of us. And then we do our digital marketing here.
Okay. So for the viewer, by the way, you can always find the links to our speakers a little farther down on the YouTube page or a little farther up on our or actually down as well on the SiliconValleyRotary.com page. But specifically, you can learn more about Erin's work at oceansoul, SOLE.com. Let's stay with the discussion of the team, but take it over to the Kenyan side. Do you have people in other countries, or is it specifically Kenya?
No, they're all in Kenya.
Okay. And some of what they do is going to be work where someone has asked for a particular kind of thing. Hey, can you make me a car? But my guess is that these are people who have a lot of ideas for possibilities as well. Tell me a little bit about the story of how the artists bring kind of their own artistic interests to the process.
It's interesting because that is one of our challenges because these guys are so talented. I had to take them on safari because they never, they make giraffes, as you saw, and gorillas and stuff, but they've never really seen this live. So we, once a year we go out into the Nairobi National Park and I take them so they can kind of see what they make. They do okay. They do very well in abstract because we've won some awards and I think you have to conceptually work with them because they are more artisans and artists, and but we run a contest twice a year and it's usually girls against boys. They self-select and then they do their own designs and we have a big, kind of voting thing. And that has really sparked a lot of their creativity and getting them. And we also bring in other artists like sculpture. We had a gentleman from Israel who's quite famous in doing the massive wood sculptures like the Big Fat Man. And he kind of showed them like some artist thinking. So we tried to generate some of that, but it's a little bit more out of, I would say, intimidation or courage as opposed to, an artist who really feels that way. I think it's still held back a little bit creatively sometimes.
Well, it sounds as if you are working to develop a sense of community and a sense and a shared set of experiences for them. Has that been useful in terms of attracting more people to the work or keeping turnover down or anything along those lines?
Yeah, we have zero attrition. Because because of the type of employee they are, they're not highly skilled, and so, with our, fair wages, I wish I'd gotten this when I worked in the States in tech, like all their time off, their hot meals, what I do, like my mom's a Rotarian. So a lot of times, it's fun. I go to her meetings and I get great ideas. Like one of the ideas I got from the Rotary was, when they want to borrow money for school, what I do is school's quite expensive for their children to go to the primary schools and stuff. So if they borrow, let's say the equivalent of $1,000, they only have to pay back $750. So we contribute I try to do matching without it being highly administrative or where it's real value to them. So, we try to do those. I do all those types of programs with them. We do these apprentice. We try to get them, certifications. I bring financial managers, not, like from Merrill Lynch, but or Goldman, but like guys that come and show them how to, do bank accounts, how to, help with savings. So we do a lot of that to, kind of, because it's not just the men and women that work for me, it's their families are impacted. So I need them, that trickle down to them and then they learn and they have more opportunity. So ultimately our impact is so much greater.
Fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your connection to Kenya. What got you connected to Kenya in the first place?
Well, I'm ex-techie. I worked out in where you all are, and I worked for British Telecom. I was their CIO, their global CIO, doing networks and things like that, and IT and applications and back office. And part of my job in British Telecom, I lived in London. I worked globally, and I started going to Kenya on holiday. And then which I loved, and then I was recruited by a private equity company called Vista Equity Partners, big in Austin, and I ran their Middle East and Africa M&A team. So I worked across Africa and they gave me the option to live in Kenya or was it Dubai? I said no, or Johannesburg. So, I kind of just fell in love with the place. And then when I decided to leave kind of corporate world, I really decided to stay in Kenya. I thought my skills, and degrees would really help leapfrog and make a difference in a business like this. So that's what I kind of did.
Nice. That's nice. What would you consider like your biggest challenges for moving things forward? Are there particular barriers that have been hard to overcome or anything along those lines?
I think it's two things. One is always cash flow because we fund everything ourselves. We have not, even though we're a nonprofit, we've never really, gone after a foundation or any type of donors. I believe in trade, not aid. So when we do get money, I like to do it in like a community project, like build this community educational warehouse or something, something that enables the other. So I would say, it's constant small business cash flow is always one. And then I think it's the strategic, where do you go from here? Because in some ways, Ocean Soul is a solution. We've proven it. We know how to run it. It's kind of like select all copy in the old ways, kind of. And, I could go to Guatemala and make a huge impact. I could go to Colombia. I could go to Haiti. I could go to India. And, doing something like that from a return on impact is huge. Return on investment, obviously you'd have to have some capital or, kind of a foundation to back you. So I would say sometimes, or do we expand it and we go into new products so that we can sell more? I think for me, that's always, it's the strategic next step for us. We've kind of transformed the business to be manual enough, but operationally effective. I feel like our measurements are down. I feel like we're making the commitments that we have, promised to people. It's really, what do we do from here? I think is my biggest challenge, in the next 12 months to make some decisions on that.
Okay. So for, there is a certain share of our programs that are really about people starting unusual businesses, social benefit businesses of some kind. And so in terms of the number of people out there who really want to make a difference in the world, but don't have a sense of how to get going on an idea, do you have some thoughts along those lines? So for people who want to make a difference, want to start something that they can build into a stable business possibility, sustainable like yours is, do you have advice for them? What kind of things might you put out there?
Well, I think having lived kind of and worked in third world, in Africa and Middle East, emerging markets, if you will, there is a lot of money, a lot of kind of our kind of, equity money that's out there trying to solve like the next big lighting problem. I honestly, kind of how I've coached people and stuff is go and find an entrepreneur that has started something, especially if they're local, somebody that is already solving a problem, and then use your skills, which is, whether it's MBA or, X tech, whatever, your skills that are more than what's there and available to scale that and bring that to life. I think there's a lot of great ideas and solutions out there. I think the talent or management, if we wanted to say the leadership, that's what's lacking, and I think it's some of us in, our second phase in life, going in and bringing what we know to light, the exponential impact is just huge. I think a lot of young try to solve, so many problems, and it's like, it's like, 10 people around a manhole, as opposed to like, okay, let's all stand here and like walk on each other to get down and stop the mess. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of my biggest recommendations is, just take what skills you have and go find a founding partner or somebody, that could use them. You'll see such change so quickly.
So one element of design thinking is, or the initial element is empathy, that ability to listen to people in order to make sure that the kinds of things you're doing are appropriate for what it is you want to provide. Is there something about your conversations with the artists or the entrepreneurs in Kenya that at some point gave you a sense of, oh, wait, this is the way we need to go with this?
That's a great question because I'm a massive fan of like agile development, design thinking. So what I came in, this is not something anyone needs. Nobody needs, a $700 moose wall or, or like, this kind. This is not, we're all used to value proposition, like go out there and find the need and then, position yourself. It's kind of like, and that was my biggest aha. And it was like, but what I knew was that I had a compassion for these people and I had a compassion for conservation. And what I did was work with them to say, what can we do to make this sustainable for them? And I focused, and that was what, I took this project kind of over, because a friend of mine, had started it. And, through her journey, it became very much about her and the other shareholder. It was very fights over, they thought, you would have thought, Walmart was going to buy everything. It just was like silly fight instead. And they lost the people, they you're about to unemploy about 80 people out here. That's, and I think when I turned my heart to those people and we worked as a community to kind of like say, you know what, we want to create a great livelihood for you. We want to make a difference. We want to make statement pieces. Let's go and do it together. And I think that's what kind of pivoted the business. My thinking, because of profit, I went big. I kind of said, we need to go with big art because that's the margin business. Like this guy that's buying a Porsche, I looked up his car, it's 220,000. I was like, okay, it's going to be 40%. Just like, they're like, how did you price it? I'm like, well, I saw you pay and I figured you can give me 20% of that. So, but that's my business background, and everybody's, but you have to have that confidence of that. But I don't think we'd be here. I don't think we'd have a compelling story if I hadn't, with my team, turned to say, we're going to do this together,
Well, a compelling story it is. And what we're going to do is we're going to wind down the recording. I'll hand it back to you in just a minute. But for everyone who has joined us, thank you so much for taking your time to watch the stories that we share. We hope that this inspires you to think in new ways about how you can make a difference locally, globally, digitally, and that you will also let us know that you are here. So if you are on the SiliconValleyRotary.com page, then scroll down a little bit. You'll see a little attendance form. Do that. And then a little farther down is our forum, Discuss. And you can leave there a message about what you saw in this program or any other element of our meeting. On our YouTube page, of course, click like. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And feel free to click on our channel just by clicking on the name right below the video to see more of the wonderful stories that we have. As we always like to do, we hand it back to the speaker for the final words. So Erin, I pass the mic back to you.
Well, thank you for having me. And I think if you enjoyed our story, I think, come and find out more about us at Ocean Soul, SOLE, and just kind of read some of the bios and some of the interesting, what the artists are up to. I think it'd be interesting to your Rotarians. And we thank you.
Excellent. Everyone, we will see you next week.